bills. So we will roll the tape. We're going all the way down to page 6. We're looking for the Caribbean Court of Justice. This bill has several aspects to it, but the one I'm going to spend a little time on is this proposal here, the CCJ to replace the UK PC. The UK PC is the Privy Council in London. Why do we want to stop going to the Privy Council? We have been going there as long as this country has been British. Turned British at the end of the 18th century, around about 1774, back in 1797 too. To go to the Privy Council, you have about $130,000 roughly to start with, if it's a civil matter. You have to find what is called a Privy Council agent in London. You have to have a Queen's Counsel in London. And you have to send somebody from Grenada, generally speaking, a lawyer. So you have to find the airfare. Even if the lawyer from Grenada is doing it free, you still have to pay the airfare and put him or her up in a hotel in London. And that comes up to about $130 to start with. Now that's important because the Privy Council never, ever acknowledged publicly that it is costly to go there. The first time the Privy Council admitted it is costly was last month, when Antigua and Barbuda started talking about moving out of the Privy Council. The Privy Council sent a videotape and another gazette to say that, among other things, they will do something about the cost. They didn't say what they would do with any particularity. They said, well, do something. Now let's pause about that for a while, because never before did the Privy Council make that admission. And it is only when the Antigua started having a public discussion about moving out, the Privy Council made that statement. So let's look at what is happening. In 2009, people in St. Anne and Grenadines having a discussion about moving out of the Privy Council. And the head of the Privy Council at that time, Lord Phillips, said that publicly, it is time that Caribbean countries get out of the Privy Council, that we're taking up too much time of British judges, senior judges, and they're going to start looking at Court of Appeal judges in the UK to fit in. So that's 2009, no admission about costs. Well, the referendum was held in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it failed. Back in 2005, 3 bills from Jamaica went to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council struck down the 3 of them. And all distinguished constitutional lawyers I know in the academic field criticized that judgment as being wrong. Later that year, 2005, the Privy Council judges, for first time ever, sat outside of London. First time in the history of the Privy Council, going back to 1792, when the first case from the Caribbean went to the Privy Council, case from Jamaica. Never before in the history of the Privy Council did they sit outside of London. But having cut down those Jamaican acts in 2005, the Privy Council then went to sit in the Bahamas. I am yet to see law reports, a case coming out of the Bahamas sittings, and they went back twice, from the Privy Council coming out of those Bahamian sittings. Why did they go to the Bahamas? They told us they wanted to make the point that you can count on the Privy Council for consistency, predictability, and I can tell you, if there is one thing that must be said about the Privy Council, when it comes to the judgments on the Caribbean, they are not predictable. Let me give you a striking example. Courts of law do not tell public decision makers what decision to make. That has been like Bible work for constitutional law. If a public decision maker makes a wrong decision, the courts will say to him or her, go back and decide it according to law. Out of the blue, an Antiguan case involving the Freedom of the Press Observer publications, where definitely the Antiguan government was wrong in not granting a radio broadcasting license to Observer. Not only the Privy Council said that the decision maker was wrong, but the Privy Council said the radio broadcasting license must be issued. A business license needed by the company must be issued. Never before did the Privy Council or any court, as far as I know, across the Commonwealth take such a stand. And they gave no reason for taking that stand. No justification for doing that. That is not predictable. That is not certain. So we reached the stage where the Privy Council left and they went to the Bahamas and were literally campaigning. This month, well, last Antigua started to discuss the matter. They didn't go physically this time. They sent a video clipping and they also sent a Skype product. And they said they're not lobbying. Well, that is lobbying. That is lobbying. So we have that admission from the Privy Council that going to the Privy Council is costly, which means that only about 5% of the population can afford, across the Caribbean, to go to the Privy Council in civil matters. I'm not talking about murder cases. We want to have equal access to the final appellate court. That's what we want. As a matter of fact, in the CCJ, when push comes to shove, you don't even have to go there. You can stay in Grenada and argue the case on electronic equipment. So what is the Privy Council saying now? They're going to do that too. Well, I ask you, all these centuries they never did it. Only now, because the Caribbean Court of Justice is doing it, the Privy Council is going to say they're going to do it? And what guarantee we have that they won't raise the cost later on again, and they wouldn't pull the plug on the equipment? We can't rely on that. So these are things you have to consider. Is it only because the CCJ is providing that facility that the Privy Council is saying, well, we're going to start doing it now? All these hundreds of years, why didn't they do it? What training do they give to our judges? None. Absolutely none. Since the CCJ has been on stream, it provides training. It has people, school children can observe what they're doing. I was at the CCJ. This is April, it had to be in February. And you had law students from across the Caribbean, not only in Trinidad, coming to the CCJ and having moots and being exposed to the final appellate court. That is what a final appellate court is about. So we are urging you to support it. Now, you may ask, what guarantee do you have that the politicians will not interfere with CCJ? And that is a fair question. It's a good question. Because we can't run away from the fact that we have had incidents in the past, including here in Grenada. So you ask me, what assurance can we give you that the politicians will not be able to interfere with the CCJ? This is the agreement establishing the Caribbean Court of Justice. And at page 4 of the agreement, you will see that between the CCJ judges there and the politicians here, there is a solid wall between them, so that the politicians can't get to the judges. What is that wall? That wall is the Judicial and Legal Services Commission. This is the body which appoints the judges of the CCJ. Who are these people? They come from across the Caribbean. Not one of the 11 members, not one, is selected by the politicians. Not one. Who then are these people? They are nominated by regional law associations like the OECS Bar, of which Mr. Ferguson here is the president, the Organization of Commonwealth Caribbean Bar Association, regional law teaching institutions like UWI, the Council of Legal Education, the University of Suriname. I noticed that Montserrat, that Martinique, last week or so, became an associate member of the OECS. So it's these organizations, the OECS, the CARICOM Secretary General, the nearest member on this body, who you say is a nominee of the government, is the chairperson of a public service commission who rotates across the Caribbean. So if it's the chairman of the Public Service Commission in Grenada now, next 3 years it would be the chairman of the Public Service Commission in Jamaica, and so on. These persons cannot be removed by any politician. You have people like Dr. Lloyd Barnett sitting on this body. So it's a wholly independent body. Now you may hear that I'm a member of that commission. How did I get there? The Director General of the OECS, together with the Secretary General of CARICOM, got together and nominated me. I never had anything to do with these gentlemen before. I never had any conversation with them. Never met them, never spoke to them, whether face-to-face or over the internet or on the telephone, never. That's how the system works. So because of this independent body, you are guaranteed that the politician cannot get onto the court anybody of their choice and cannot remove from the court somebody they don't like. But then you may ask, well, how is the court financed? Cannot the government starve them of money? The answer is no. When the court was set up, seed money of $100 million was established, raised by the Caribbean Development Bank to be paid back by participating governments as their share for financing the court. And practically all of that money has now been repaid. Well, who manages that fund? Again, there is an independent body, a board of trustees from across the region, put there by trade union movements, local banks like the Cooperative Bank here in Grenada, chambers of commerce, wholly independent bodies. That is why when the Privy Council examined this agreement, This is what the Privy Council said about the CCJ. In a case called Jamaica Council for Human Rights and Marshall Burnett in 2005. This was the testimony of the Privy Council about the CCJ. The CCJ is a court of complete independence, enjoying all the advantages which a regional court could hope to enjoy. Those are the words of the Privy Council, that the CCJ is a court of complete independence. As a matter of fact, other courts like the CCJ, like the European Court of Justice, are looking at the mechanics of the CCJ to see what they can learn from the CCJ. The financing, the choosing of the court. You're following the campaign in the US right now. And you know that top of the agenda is the question of choosing a new judge for the US Supreme Court. And it's all in the politics. I saw, for example, even a person from the Democratic Party saying that he's not too sure he will support the person nominated by President Barack Obama because he's not too sure about the judgments that judge might give. You can have that with the CCJ. You can have a president or a prime minister washing his mouth or her mouth on a nominee. And then it is left for the Senate, the US Senate, to approve the nomination. Straight politics. You can have that with the CCJ. And that's why the Privy Council was giving that testimony. So in terms of protecting the judges there from the politicians here, you have that commission. In terms of guaranteeing the independence of the court, you have the board of trustees investing that money and using the interest from the investment to run the court from day to day. It takes about $6 million to run the court every year. And we have over $100 million capital, not even including interest from the capital. So the court is in very good hands.